Welcome to Sip with Summers, the podcast where we talk about sex, intimacy, and pleasure. Because someone has to, and let's be honest, it may as well be me. I'm your host, Jennifer Marie Summers, board certified sexologist, certified sex coach, menopause coach, and your favorite inappropriate friend with a microphone. Around here, we cover everything from why is my libido ghosting me to is it normal to fantasize about pizza during sex? Spoiler alert, yes. So grab a drink and let's get into the good stuff because pleasure is your birthright and awkward is my love language. Let's spill, sip, and say the things most people whisper. Welcome to the show. Today, we're talking about something that I consistently see in my work, and that is women who are successful on paper, but disconnected in their bodies, their desire, and their relationships. So I am super excited to be joined here today by Dr. Eleanor Haspel-Portner. She's a PhD from University of Chicago. Dr. Eleanor is a pioneer in blending psychology, neuroscience, and spirituality. She's the creator of the Noble Energy Maps, which is used by over 45,000 people. My goodness. And she focuses on aligning energy, purpose, and relationships. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here, Dr. Eleanor. Now, you've been doing this work for decades. What are you seeing that traditional psychology just wasn't addressing?
As a clinician, I began to notice that I couldn't get the depth in any area with my clients unless I paired my language to the actual world that they were experiencing the dysfunction. So if somebody in a relationship, let's say, was having a consistent argument with their spouse, it could likely be a mismatch between the mental waking world and the spiritual world, where one person was talking one language and one need, and the other person was not getting into that world with them. So as a clinician, I just kept searching. My early work and the early impetus for it was my children. And at the point that I finished my PhD, my children were 2 and 3. And yeah, I was pretty gutsy. I was working on my PhD, teaching college full time, and having my kids. But when my kids were 2 and 3, I didn't know what to do when they were having a tantrum. And 2-year-olds have tantrums. So I began studying parent effectiveness training. And even though I was trained as a developmental psychologist, and I had done my internship with a lot of my cases from the child daycare, the school, elementary school kids who were having problems, and I still felt like I wasn't accessing the soul of my children, and I didn't want to damage them. So I started studying parent effectiveness training. At the same time, I started transcendental meditation and had a Kundalini experience. So an energy experience of light, of God. And I was given a lot of information about relationships and communication. Out of that experience, I got an outline for my first book. That was called Marriage in Trouble, Time of Decision. And in there, I talked a lot about what I was seeing with my couples, which was that a lot of the issues were a mismatch. And I thought it was a mismatch of values, but really it's a mismatch of the worlds. I just kept searching because as a clinician, one size doesn't fit all.
So true. Hmm.
And the field of psychology, I was trained as a Freudian. I was trained as a Jungian analyst. I was trained in NLP, in hypnosis, in sex therapy, in parent effectiveness training, in child development, you name it. And then I became an astrologer, and I started having these energy experiences and realized that I had seen auras my whole life. So as I began putting the pieces together, I realized that the field of psychology doesn't address the soul. It really doesn't address it because it doesn't communicate without kinesthetic, auditory, or visual cues. If you say to someone, what does it feel like? Kinesthetic. What does it look like? Visual. What were you trying to say? Auditory. So when we want to get to the soul, we need to use clean language. What do you know about? And when X, that's like what? So you take people internal, you get them self-reflecting. And when you put couples into a dialogue and you ask them to just mirror and repeat back, imago dialoguing, what you're doing is you're basically keeping them in themselves rather than moving them out with questions that engage the mind.
Hmm.
So
Now,
does that answer the question?
it does. And actually, I have a follow-up question to that. And that is a lot of women that I work with, because I work primarily with women, they show up to my sessions, they feel stuck, they feel overwhelmed, they're judging themselves, they have regret. That's a big one that comes up a lot. So where does that show up in the framework of all of these modalities that you've learned from?
I would, in that case, be listening for whether or not they ever feel like their soul is listened to. And I would move into more of a clean language questioning. When feeling all these things, that's like what? Or if they say they're stuck, when stuck, what do you know about stuck? And what would you like to have happen when stuck? And it's like what? So you begin to get them talking metaphorically, and you deepen that metaphor. And then you could say a question like, and when X, is it inside of you or outside of you? So you begin to identify their conceptualization, and then you can get them to transform it.
Do you often find that it's more internal than external? So when you say, is
Always.
it inside or outside? I just feel like inside is almost always the answer, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
But if it's a relationship and they're stuck, they may feel like it's outside because nobody's coming into the circle with them.
Mhm. Almost like blaming a partner or something, right? Or like
Exactly.
everybody else is responsible for my life sucking right now. How do you think it shows up with intimacy and desire, that disconnection?
What I've seen, especially in couples where they ultimately divorce,
Mhm.
usually it's a mismatch of the worlds. So I've seen in quite a few couples where they start out in the relationship and they're young, and their goals for what they want to accomplish in the world are pretty much in sync. And then they begin to accomplish. And what I've seen most often from a frequency standpoint, not all cases, is that often the woman will move more into spiritual, which is the natural instinct of the feminine to start with, to be the caretaker of the family, to make sure that everybody is unstressed. It's a peaceful environment. There's no arguments. And what I've seen happen is once the man becomes really successful, he may lose touch with spirit and be more interested in money and success and prestige and acquiring the accoutrements that prove how successful he's been. Whereas for the woman, suddenly those values no longer seem so important because now she wants the kids to be heard. She wants her soul to be heard. She's feeling like, what about me? Where do I fit into this? Where's our date night? So very often the divorces occur because of the differential of values. And that evolves as the family system evolves. Realistically, it's not until people are around 35 that they suddenly realize, okay, I'm a grown-up. Now what?
Yeah.
I remember when I hit 28 and I thought, holy shit. It's like, is this what I want to do? I've been very blessed in that I've always done what I love. So I say I've never worked a day in my life because I love what I do. But not everybody can say that.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's
And
funny you
when
said 28 because 28 would have been my answer too.
28 is your Saturn return
Yes.
astrologically. And in part of my training at University of Chicago with Bernice Newgarten, she was a pioneer in understanding that development continued throughout the lifespan and that the markers are basically all of Erickson's stages up to age 18. And then we have adult development, and you sort of arrive at 28. And then 35 is my life where I want it to be. And then we keep going, 50 Chiron return. Then we have Saturn return. Then we have Uranus return. So the planets mark developmental timers, and they seem to hold.
Yeah.
But the culture, starting with the 60s, when birth control, abortion, women's lib all took hold, women lost their femininity, their feminine wiles, and men got emasculated. And now, the society talks about toxic masculinity. I don't know what that is.
I think of the patriarchy. I don't think so much about the toxic masculinity, but I do believe that the patriarchy has really hurt everybody, men and women alike.
I think it's women's lib more than the patriarchy. Because actually, my husband and I were watching an old movie called The Perils of Pauline.
Never heard of it.
And I said to Marvin, I remember my mother telling me that was what she watched. It was a 1947 movie. And here's this woman who's using her feminine charms and going to the top of the show business ladder, and as a woman. And when we're watching all these old movies, women used their feminine wiles to get ahead, and they were happy, and it was charming. And I'm old enough to have observed it. I'm 81. So
Shut up. You are not 81, Dr.
I'm
Eleanor.
81.
What? I need your skincare routine.
You know, my skincare routine is nothing.
Not even like SPF?
No,
Wow. Okay.
I don't. I put moisturizer in the morning with my makeup. That's it.
Well,
Wash my face at night. So I remember when my oldest sister, I'm the youngest of 5, and she was 17 when I was born. So I grew up and we lived in a 2-story, 2-family home. So I spent a lot of time with my oldest sister. And I remember her getting Betty Friedan's The Feminine Mystique book and reading it and changing from using her feminine wiles and being really happy. You know, she'd get dressed at 4:00 waiting for her husband to come home, and she'd cook dinner, and she'd set the table and she'd serve him, and he'd bring her gifts. And then she read Feminine Mystique. She changed. She didn't cook dinner every night. Their marriage began to suffer. And I began to see the culture changing, especially in the 70s when abortion became legal, because women no longer worried about getting pregnant. And birth control pills came in the 60s and changed women's hormones. I never took birth control pills myself. I took them 1 month because I was having pain in the middle of my cycle. And the doctor put me on birth control pills, and I started throwing up and couldn't stop. It was the worst month of my life. I never did it again. It changes your hormones. It changes your femininity. And the whole generation of women, were told to go out in the workplace and not have kids when they're young. And so many women are now doing IVF. What happened? There's something really wrong on a cultural level with the imbalance between men and women. Women used to look up to men. They were the hero. And men, loved their women and showered them with gifts. And we don't see that anymore.
What do you think is responsible for that change, though? You said women's liberation, but I also think about women having that opportunity of seeing that there's more to life than waiting on their husband hand and foot.
Yeah, except that I've done it all. I've waited on my husband, and he pampers me. I went to the dentist this morning, and he was going to the vet with the dog. So I couldn't take the Tesla. So I took my car. And I was concerned about one of the tires. He went down before I left. He took it out of the garage. He put it in the driveway for me. And he made sure it was okay. We still have a traditional relationship. And I've always worked. But I worked school hours. And I've hired housekeepers to do the housework. So I could do what I love doing, cooking the dinners, baking the cakes and desserts, and being a woman. Not putting career over family. It's balance. And it needs to be balanced for men as well. I always made sure that my husband, we met in India. And when we met, he had left his medical practice because he didn't want to do herd medicine. So he wanted to spend time with patients. And so when he came back from India and moved in with me, and we bought a house and got married, I insisted he work in his office with no help in our pool house so he could do it exactly the way he wanted to do it. So women support men to be men and to do it honoring their feminine side. And our husbands can support our masculine side, especially after age 35. When I was 35, my kids were teenagers. I could be free, monitoring them closely. But once kids hit college age, they usually go off on their own. So then I'm free.
I'm curious, though, how would this apply to like non-traditional relationships? So whether that be non-binary, LGBT, ethically non-monogamous, like how do you see those things show up in those type of relationships with these gender roles that you're describing?
I think the gender roles apply. Regardless of the definition, there is that balance of masculine and feminine. It's within each of us. And whatever the relationship, you have to balance those worlds, those four worlds. And the values and the communication has to be congruent. So if one partner has things that are especially important to them spiritually, if the other partner doesn't value them and respect them, they're not going to be compatible. It doesn't matter what you label the partners. There's still a balance between the spiritual and the emotional angelic, which is the axis of staying in tune with the soul and using communication that transforms all emotional reactivity into compassion and love. That's one axis. The other axis is the mental waking world that pairs with the physical biological world. The world that keeps us safe, that our body tells us what we're reacting to, how to handle it, whether it's aligned spiritually or not. And it tells us how to adjust in the mental waking world so it is aligned with the deeper values.
Now, I did want to ask you, you were talking about alignment. What are signs someone is out of alignment with their true past?
The work then as a clinician becomes using language that puts them in touch with that misalignment so they can fix it. They know something's not right, but they don't quite know what it is. And so the task becomes getting at it on a soul level. And that's with kinds of questions like, are you going in the right direction for yourself? Or a lot of times when I'm with a client, I'll hear that they're not going in the right inner alignment with what they're saying outside. They'll say, I want to do this. And I'll hear that it's not their soul frequency. And I'll say to them, what do you know about your direction? Or this goal you have? Is it right for you? Is there anything else about it that you know. And a lot of times they'll get the nuance
Mhm.
of where it's misaligned, and they'll learn how to align it.
Is it possible for someone to be successful and also out of alignment?
Many people are. And that's when we get burnout. Therapeutically, it's when, as therapists, we hit a plateau with someone. And when we hit the plateau, we're communicating in a world, we're missing a world that needs communication. Because what a plateau means is that they're missing a piece of information that has not transformed the issue.
Why do you think communication is so critical for self awareness? Not just relationships, but like ourselves.
We talk to ourselves all the time.
That's true.
I'm always talking to myself. You have this much time before you have to do this, and you have this, or I'll look at the clock and I'll say, okay, it's now this time, and my next thing is at this time. Or in the morning, I'll walk into my closet and say, what do I want to wear today?
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
So being aware of the inner dialogue is what gets us in touch with the soul. So I am an advocate of meditation. I personally have done transcendental meditation since 1974. Every day. I don't
Wow.
miss. I'm also a Reiki master. So every night I do healing work on not just myself, but all my clients and the world, etc. But we learn, when we're two, we learn to say I. We're no longer an object. It's no longer me. It's no longer what somebody's doing to me. It's what we want to do in the world. It's very important that parents begin to recognize that the terrible twos are really the soul wanting to be heard. How many people, when they're two, are heard and listened to? And instead of being told what to do, they can be given choices about what would you prefer to do. It's very helpful for parents to learn parent effectiveness training by Tom Gordon. I still think after all these years, it's the best parenting book. That and Compassionate Child Rearing by Firestone are the two favorites of mine, because Tom Gordon in Parent Effectiveness Training talks about identifying who owns the problem. And as a parent, if you recognize that it's not your problem, you give your child authority over themselves. And in relationships, that's important, because you can begin to identify, is it a value or is it a need? And
Yes.
the communication is very different depending on which it is.
Mhm. So, what's something simple that our listeners could do today to start feeling more connected with themselves?
Take some time to go into your own space. Close your eyes and breathe. Breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. And just listen to yourself. Don't think, don't ask, just listen and see what bubbles up. Is it a question? Is it a statement? Is it a feeling? Is it an image? Get to know, when you quiet and in yourself, what you feel, where you are, and what's important to you. I start my day every day praying, number one. And then number two is meditating, doing TM. Number 3 is doing a self-hypnosis. Number 4, I sometimes take my blood pressure. When I pray, I read the Bible also. So I take about an hour before I ever do anything. And I always allow myself at least 2 hours in the morning to get ready because I don't want, that's my time. It's important at the end of the day to take time for yourself as well. And to journal every day. And tip for listeners, when you do gratitudes, which I recommend a gratitude journal, and that you do it at the end of every day.
Mhm.
And when you write a gratitude, I am grateful for because, and the because statement, I like it to have a tangible and concrete effect on me of that gratitude. In parent effectiveness training, Tom Gordon makes an important distinction between values and needs. And in a need, it's a tangible and concrete effect on you of the other person's behavior. That's how you know it's a need, not a value. So I always like to do the because statement, thinking about what is the tangible, concrete effect on me? Because I'm grateful for things that I need to fulfill me. So how does it fulfill me? And what the research shows is that when you add the because statement, you heal faster and cortisol levels drop. So there are real health benefits. I first read about it in a Mayo Clinic newsletter many years ago. And the article said that people who used the because statement healed much faster after 3 weeks than people who didn't.
It almost makes me think of it's like a hack for your subconscious. Like you're
Exactly.
telling it, like, this is why you're grateful. Remember this and let's solidify that. And, I did want to add one thing. I love all of your suggestions. I think for listeners who are busy moms, career women, et cetera, who maybe listen and think, wow, Dr. Eleanor, that sounds amazing. There's no way in hell I have 2 hours to do that. I think we could make it really small. It could be 3 mindful breaths in the morning.
If you're a busy mom, take the time to have breakfast with your kids. Meals with your children are bonding. Take the time in the morning then to include your children in your spiritual routine. I used to sit and meditate. I'd put the TV on for my kids. They'd watch Brady Bunch. And I would meditate with one kid on each knee. And I always ate breakfast with them until they left for college. And we always ate dinner together as well. Studies show that when families eat meals together, the drug use diminishes. So, yes, as a busy mom, if you cannot take even an hour for yourself in a day, you're too busy, burn out, and you need to talk to your family about you as a person needing spiritual time to revamp, to recharge. Kids know about plugging a phone in. So you
Yes.
need to plug in to your spirit every day.
Mommy's battery is going to die. I need a break. I did have one more question for you, and that
Sure.
was if a woman is feeling stuck, disconnected, or frustrated, what would be the first thing you would want her to know?
I would want to know if she's happy inside herself. I'd want to know if she feels that her life is in balance, or is it out of balance? And if out of balance, whereabouts is the imbalance? So that we can begin to identify, is it a relationship issue? Is it an inner issue? Is it a too busy issue? Overload issue? Where it really is the stuckness? And what does she want to have happen? Does she want to stay stuck? So many women nowadays model that I am, right? I'm so busy, I'm so overloaded. And when you ask them to change, no, I can't change anything. So the question is, are they happy in their being stuck? And that's a valid question, because sometimes when somebody is stuck, the undercurrent of it is fear of change. And being stuck is known. And being unstuck, they don't know what they would do or who they are. And so that can be a source of the issue.
It's that fear, right? It's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of what the difference could mean for their life. But I always feel like change most of the time is positive when we have some space between it and we can reflect back. But I know how scary those jumps feel into the unknown.
It took me 2.5 years to divorce my first husband. And it was scary. My kids were 4 and 5. And being alone as a single mom back then was especially scary.
Yeah.
It can be very scary, but is it less scary or more scary than your current situation?
Exactly.
And what are the consequences? So as clinicians, we have a lot that we juggle, but we have to be aware that it's 4 worlds, and that the most critical in terms of being self-actualized is the spirit. And I can honestly say, in over 50 years of clinical practice, that every person who ever came to me with a problem came because nobody listened to their soul. So as help agents, what we do is we listen to the soul. Before we listen to anything else, that's where we have to tune in. And that's what psychology left out.
Okay, so I have one more question, but it's not related really much to what we're talking about right now, but it's something you said earlier, and I'm just curious, and you can say no, but you mentioned you can see people's auras. Does this mean, can you see my aura right now? Is it you're walking down the street?
If I look.
Okay, so it's like you tune into it.
When I first had it come back in, I couldn't control it.
Okay.
So I was sitting at the airport with my mother in Phoenix, and a lady at the next table was going to die in 24 hours.
Oh, gosh.
And I started crying. And I said to my mother, what do I do with this? I can't go over to someone and say, you're going to die. So it took me 5 years to be able to not see.
Wow.
To see and not see. So I don't look.
I got you.
I want to look.
I'm just curious. I've heard other people say that before too.
Everybody experiences energy.
Yes.
Most people are sensitive to the frequencies of other people. And we all have the capacity to know a lot more than we're trained to know.
Yeah.
And that's my mission, is to open the door and say, welcome in. We're all spiritual beings. Stop pretending we're not.
Spiritual beings having a human experience is what I like to say.
Exactly.
Listeners, remember, your body is not broken. Your desire is not gone. You might be disconnected, but it's something that we can work on and we can get back to it. I will have Dr. Eleanor's information in the show notes, so please connect and follow with her. And Dr. Eleanor, thank you again so much for this conversation and your
You're
time
welcome.
today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Sip with Summers, where we laughed, learned, and probably said clitoris more times than your high school health teacher ever did. If you liked what you heard, be a gem and leave a review, share it with your favorite group chat, or send it to that friend who really needs to hear this. You know the one. For more tips, tools, and slightly inappropriate jokes, follow me on social or head to summersoflove.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay turned on, and as always, keep sipping.